Alrighty, you guys. Sorry, my mic was like literally all the way over here. But hey, what's up, guys? It's your boy back at you with another episode of Combat. Man, that fucking camera look crooked as shit, don't it? I don't know. We'll see how it looks. Whatever. So obviously, I upgraded the new digs. Well, not upgraded, I guess. So I always had all of this stuff downstairs in my basement, like my PC, my PlayStation, and my monitors and everything like that. So I figured, well, I didn't figure. My wife was pretty much like, "Hey, you don't play your video games that much, and you got your recording stuff upstairs. So why not just combine everything, and then we can see what happens. See if I'm a little more comfortable, or makes it feel more of a studio-like, I guess you could say. But yeah, so far so good. I'm digging it. That's for sure. I hope the new angle is not as bad. Now you can see my with these bright ass fucking ring lights. You can see my shiny ass forehead. Obviously, got my hair cut. Um, and yeah, I hope everybody's having a wonderful start to their week. We're almost to hump day. We just gotta bear down and just get there. You know what I mean? So, and we'll see how it goes. But I hope everybody's doing great. Glad to be back and back in the kind of the routine. Got the new digs, got everything set up right here how I want it. Got cable management going on. All the good things. So you guys are in for a real treat, I guess you could say. What we're gonna be talking about today, and I know there's been a couple people who's like, "Hey, can you talk about these things or this and stuff like that?" Like I will get to them. You know what I mean, it's just there's so many different things that I can talk about or that I'm trying to talk about, and then I'll get to them. Don't worry. I'll be around long enough to where we talk about every damn weird thing that happens. But anyway, so I don't know if you guys have this problem. All right, so just bear with me real quick before we get into what we're going to talk about today. So I don't know what it is about. I don't know if I'm doing this myself or if I'm I don't know if it's from what I'm watching maybe or what's going through with I couldn't tell you, but I have some of the weirdest dreams you could ever imagine. And I'm talking like in-depth dreams, like to where I can remember them, where it feels like you can feel the heat, you can see the darkness, you can feel the weather and how everything feels, and it is insane how in-depth these dreams are. So the one that I had last night was pretty fucking weird. All right, so everybody just stick with me for this one. This will take 1 minute, and then we'll get back into it. So I was on a spaceship, all right, obviously in space, and it was me and my brother Joey. All right, we haven't talked for a minute, whatever. I don't know how he popped up into it, but he's in it. So we had this weird ass, we're on a weird spaceship, and we're like trying to escape it. Obviously, like we're trying to just get out of there, and we just want to move on and just go to some or escape the place. I don't know what we're really trying to do, but we see these two guards, but the guards are like walruses, I guess you could say. They got the big ass tusk like that. They're pretty much all right. So don't think I'm fucking weird to think of it. So they have like these big ass teeth, and they're walruses, right? And like we're thinking like, hey, whatever they got, maybe we can get it, and then we can get off. Maybe we need like key cards or whatever. Maybe watch too much movies or whatever. Getting like key cards or get something to a spaceship. That like we know how to fly a spaceship, right? And basically, then we can get off this place. And I'm like, all right, cool. And then we go up to these fucking walrus, like try and sneak up behind him and try and haymaker him, punch his like big ass. I say big walrus. He's probably like the height of me, I guess. And I try and punch him. And as soon as I get close to him, he hits this thing on his wrist. It slows down time, and he like slows us down to like super slow mo speed. And then like I completely miss, like my brother completely misses, and then we're just in an all out fight with just two big ass walruses, right? And then these motherfuckers pull out lightsabers all of a sudden, like that's their weapon of choice. They're like lightsabers, you know what I mean? So then my brother's freaking out, he's screaming for help, and I don't know who he's thinking is gonna help me. Like, which I'm in the same shit you're in, but he tries to do all that stuff and everything like that, and then I managed to get one of the lightsabers from one of these walruses, and then I stab one of them, right? Like, got that motherfucker. And then as soon as I stab him, the other one comes at me and like bites me in the stomach. And then as soon as it bites me in the stomach, I like freak out and like wake up out of the dream and shit like that. But that was, I mean, I don't know. I couldn't tell you the meaning, the purpose of what it was or what it was about. I don't know. I can't tell you, but it was weird as hell. So it was pretty funny though. But I just thought I'd share that weird ass dream. But I have those dreams all the time, like all kinds of weird dreams like that. It's insane. But yeah. Anyways, that's a little tidbit before we get started. So on to today's actual subject. What we're going to be talking about today is here's your best bet for surviving an encounter with the dreaded Wendigo. All right. According to Native American folklore, Wendigo attacks are extremely difficult to survive. These fearsome creatures hunt and kill humans, and they can even seize control over the spirit of their chosen victims. There are many variations of this legend, but commonly held belief is that Wendigos are savage, brutal cryptids that are both supernatural, malevolent. Therefore, when a Wendigo attacks, it typically results in the death of their prey. These beasts are usually spotted during the winter and were often blamed by early Native Americans for devastating famines. Interestingly, many legends also connect them to frigid temperatures and the north. When you combine all of it with a singular focus, savagery, and great hunting skills, it makes Wendigos seem like a possible inspiration for the White Walkers of Game of Thrones. In this instance, though these winter monsters dwell in U.S. and Canada Great Lakes region, the Atlantic coast rather than the north of the wall. So whether you believe in this legend or not, it's always a good idea to at least know how to survive a Wendigo attack should you find yourself face to face with one of them. All right. So Wendigos are former cannibals, and you can become one by eating human flesh. Imagine for a moment that you're lost in the woods in the dead of winter. There's no food, no way to successfully hunt, and your only companion is another human. In times of extreme hunger, people will often devolve to their most basic survival instincts and resort to eating another person. However, if this happens because you're trying your best to hide and survive while stuck in a forest with a Wendigo, the joke may be on you. After all, the earliest Wendigo legends state that the spirit of Wendigos actually possessed the body of people who resorted to cannibalism. So if you eat somebody, you're pretty much screwed and you're just going to turn into one of these things. So survival is possible, but it'll probably drive you insane. Surviving a Wendigo attack isn't likely. That doesn't mean it's impossible, but you honestly may not want to survive after learning about the side effects. It may be a little more than just conjecture, since Wendigo attacks are practically impossible to find. But there are some who believe that coming into contact with Wendigos will drive you insane. There isn't a treatable type of insanity either, as your mind will become completely vacant of all thoughts due to the exposure to such a powerful supernatural creature. Wendigos are insatiable and will tear you apart. So I got pictures of these fucking things too, so I'll put them in there. Because some of these are pretty good. So basically what a Wendigo looks like is it basically either looks like a human with like the head of like a dead deer pretty much, or a buck. So pretty much it's got the skull of that with like the horns and everything like that. So which I'll put them in this video. I'll put in a couple pictures like up over here somewhere out of there. But yeah. So where the fuck was? So when most creatures hunt, they are typically satisfied after making one solid catch. After all, it makes sense to stop eating after feeling full, right? Don't think you're in the clear if you happen upon a Wendigo finishing up its meal. Although because these creatures are never full, perhaps their insatiable hunger explains why they savagely rip their prey to pieces before even beginning to eat them. Burn the Wendigo alive to survive. According to some legends, fire might be your best weapon when it comes to battling a Wendigo. Unfortunately, you can't simply wave a torch near a Wendigo's face and call it good. Instead, it's necessary to somehow set the entire body on fire. Of course, getting that close to a Wendigo is so dangerous that most people won't even be able to test this theory before being devoured. It doesn't make sense, though, that a creature with an ice heart would be so vulnerable to fire. Always go after the Wendigo's frozen heart. Primary weakness of Wendigo is its frozen heart. There are many legends that talk about this, though the most common of them states that destroy it, its ice cold heart will release, but also kill the human trapped within the beast. To pull this off, you need to get close enough to the Wendigo to stab it with a silver stake. It is also possible that a silver bullet will do the trick, and some even believe that fire can melt the frozen heart. Watch out for ice storms and tornadoes while the Wendigo is pursuing you. God, this fucking, I can't even, like, I'm like, you guys gotta look at this. Look at this fucking weird ass photo. That shit, I don't know who the fuck would come up with that artwork or whatever it is. But that shit's creepy as fuck. A Wendigo is difficult enough to deal with due to its savage strength and superior hearing abilities. Yes, these cryptids can also command ice storms and tornadoes, which make it seem virtually impossible to safely make an escape. When you combine this with the apparent ability to cause an animal to stampede and rip trees off the ground, it becomes even harder to imagine surviving this attack. Therefore, if it's after you, it's important to remain alert for much more than just their presence. After all, a tornado or an ice storm could kill you well before these creatures even reach you. If you're able to destroy the Wendigo's heart, you must complete a ritual. See, man, this is just too many steps. Like, I get it. Like, if number one, I don't get why you. I mean, I guess if people go out in the woods and stuff like that, but I just don't get why people put themselves in these kinds of positions. Like, people who, I guess probably the biggest thing is when people go to, like, they go in the woods to, like, go camping and stuff like that. And this is more, like, I mean, I don't really know. I guess I don't camp enough to know. But I know when I went camping or when I was a kid with my dad, like, he always had a gun. You know what I mean? Like, he was always out there with some sort of protection, not just, just your fisticuffs out there with these kinds of things. So that's why I don't get, like, for most of these people that have had these encounters or that talk about this or have brought it into folklore to be like this cryptid that everyone and the Native American know. Like, how do you come about stumbling upon this thing? Like that's the weird thing for me. And there's been so many accounts of it, it's hard to think that someone would make this. Like, it's hard to just think like, this is made up. Like, I don't know if it could be made up or it is whatever, but it's just weird, I guess. And I don't know if people, like certain drugs and stuff like that will get you to like resort to cannibalism, I guess. And if you get to that point, I guess it's number one, you're already gonna look crazy. That's already a given right there. So to be at that point where you're, I guess, if you're already eating people at that point, like you're already lost all sense of everything at that point. So it's hard to think how people get into these positions unless you're going out of your way to get into these positions, I guess is the hard thing. So against all odds, you manage to stab a Wendigo's heart with a silver stake or blade. The creature appears to be dead, so you're all set right. If the legends are true, you must go one step further to ensure the Wendigo won't come after you again. First, you have to take the shattered heart and lock it inside a silver box. Next, bury the box in a graveyard that's attached to a church before you head to the graveyard. Use an axe with silver plating to chop off all the Wendigo's limbs and head. Finally, salt the body, burn it until ash, and let the wind scatter the remains. Like, that's a problem right there. In my opinion, that's a like, who's gonna let you? Like, it's gonna look like you're killing a person. Like, it's not gonna look like you're out there making fucking mulch or something like that. Like, that's a lot of steps, I guess. I mean, but I guess if you come into this point where you've had this encounter, you're probably already like, well, this is already a lot. So let me just go ahead and, I guess, finish it. I guess at that point, if you already ran into it. But hey, who knows? Might have to. Look out for people suffering from Wendigo psychosis. As if actual Wendigos weren't bad enough, there's also a psychological condition called Wendigo psychosis. People suffering from this mental health disorder actually believe that the spirit of Wendigo has possessed them. The primary symptom of Wendigo psychosis is an intense craving for human flesh. This is generally brought on by living in an isolated location without easy access to food. So, pretty much my dad. Yeah, that's pretty much him. There are several historical accounts of Wendigo psychosis. Oh, Jesus Christ. Ever since I got fucking COVID, I can't, I cannot get rid of this cough. Like, if I talk too much, it just happens, and I cannot fucking stand it. Whatever, anyways. Um, so one of the most notable is the sad case of Swift Runner, who slaughtered and ate his family in 1878. The following year, he was executed despite evidence that he was under the influence of Wendigo psychosis at the time of the murders. A Wendigo can mimic the sounds of human voices. One of the Wendigo's most impressive hunting skills is also arguably its most dangerous. If you were alone in the woods and knew that a terrifying monster was hunting you, it's likely that you'd be looking for assistance anywhere and everywhere. You may also find yourself searching for a loved one without knowing that the Wendigo has killed them already. In either case, hearing the voice of someone you know may tempt you to reveal your location. Sadly, the Wendigo can mimic human voices, which means it's impossible to know for sure if what you're hearing is a real person or a tricky Wendigo. Going indoors won't stop it either. What the fuck kind of picture is this? This picture is weird as well. Don't let the concept of a locked door lull you into the false sense of security. Wendigos are extremely intelligent cryptids that also have fantastic manual dexterity. As a result, they have the ability to easily open doors. Even worse, they understand how to unlock doors. Although running into a house may buy you a few seconds, it's not likely to end the Wendigo attack. Remember, the Wendigos can hunt for several hours without tiring. Some creatures will tire or eventually become bored of chasing after the prey. Unfortunately, this isn't the case for Wendigos. If one is tracking you, it's wise to assume that it will continue to do so until it catches you or until you miraculously manage to kill it. These fierce hunters become obsessively focused after selecting their target. Therefore, humans will usually tire out and make a mistake long before the Wendigo even considers giving up. Staying perfectly still is the best way to survive. Wait, what the fuck? How does that work out? This thing is already like a vicious ass creature, and you're saying that regardless, this thing is going to attack my ass and is going to come for me. So you're saying now staying perfectly still is the best way to survive? Please tell me how. Wendigos have amazing hearing, but this may be part and due to the weakness of their eyesight. So if you are able to remain perfectly still, it's possible to evade them. Of course, there are some who believe that the Wendigo's eyesight flaw becomes irrelevant if you make the mistake of looking them in the eyes. If you ever find yourself face to face with one of these monstrous creatures, there are a few important things to remember. Don't make a noise, don't make a move, and whatever you do, don't make eye contact. Dear Lord. I don't know what the hell that was about. Alrighty, so now we'll go into the stories of cannibalistic spirit of Native American folklore. So I think this one goes in actual. Oh, it shows you where it originates and everything. I don't remember how what order I printed these damn things off. So whatever they pop up is how they pop up, I guess. I probably should have read this one first, because it tells you where it originated and everything. So, anyways, we're just going with the flow now. So, hopefully that's all right. So, the Wendigo is a cannibalistic spirit of Native American folk that originates in and from the forests of Canada and the Great Plains region of the United States. The Wendigo is said to be a malevolent spirit, sometimes depicted as a creature with human-like characteristics which possess human beings. With the Wendigo's unsatisfactory hunger, it is known to cannibalize other humans as well as the prosperity to murder those that fall under its influence. Today we have a very special treat for everybody reading as we finally cover a topic that I'm sure many people have been waiting to see. Today we travel the part of the North American that the Algonquin people call their home to discuss a truly terrifying legend. An evil spirit that prowls the north forests of the Atlantic coast, a monster that can be found up and down the Great Lakes region of the United States and Canada. The creature, obviously you guys know him, the Wendigo. Some believe that as a large monster, others saw it as a spirit capable of possession. How the Wendigo manifests itself depends entirely on the beliefs of the individual, and the Algonquin can be broken down into several groups of indigenous people. If we put aside the Wendigo's appearance briefly, there was a general agreement as to what the Wendigo was and what it represented. It is almost always associated with cannibalism, famine, and greed that came from the long cold winters, which is why so many people saw it as a malevolent, supernatural entity. So, what does it look like? There are two very distinct archetypes that I'm sure many of you would recognize. A large demonic beast, normally of the head or skull of a stag, complete or some kind of antlers or horns. This type of Wendigo can become quite popular today, and it's an image that I'm sure many of you recognize from a lot of popular media. But this particular image seems to be more modern interpretation. I remember seeing the imagery when we were first watching the TV show Hannibal, which of course has the underlying theme of murder and cannibalism. That was fucking in there? Damn, I think I gotta go back and watch that and see. Look at that. That fucking movie was creepy as shit too. I didn't understand the Wendigo symbolism because I didn't know much about the Wendigo and its association with cannibalism and acts of evil. So why does this version of the Wendigo have antlers and fur reminiscent of a stag? Sadly, I couldn't find a conclusive answer. There isn't much mention of the Wendigo's appearance in the traditional Algonquin folklore, and what we do certainly doesn't. And it wait, what? What we do see certainly doesn't describe a stag. So there could be some confusion between the concept of the Navajo skinwalkers, or this very well could be a modern stylistic interpretation. Either way, the stag is an animal that appears in folklore all around the world, including Greek mythology. Though it's normally associated with the woodland deities and fertility, it's also an animal that the Native Americans highly respected. So if we do go with the concept that the Wendigo was seen as a symbol of corruption, the fact that it then manifests as an animal that the natives held in such high regard makes it seem as if nothing is safe from the Wendigo's curse, which does highlight the seriousness of the warnings and meanings interwoven in these stories. The more traditional appearance of the Wendigo is closer to a haggard and decomposing corpse. Its skin is stretched extremely tight over its bones, creating the thin, translucent layer of desiccated flesh from which its bones were ready to burst. Jesus Christ. This fucking thing is creepy. So its complexion varies from sickly white to ashy gray. It has long, spindly fingers with sharp nails that it used to tear its victims into pieces. The easiest way to describe this type of Wendigo is as a gaunt skeleton that looks like it has risen from the grave. Wherever the Wendigo goes, it is followed by the odor of death and decay. It is a vile creature with jagged, misshapen teeth that at times resemble yellow fangs. In this form, the Wendigo may be a creature that resembles a humanoid, but I assure you, they are nothing short of anyone's worst nightmare. The curse of the Wendigo. There's an interesting description that comes from a new law in the belief that the Wendigos were giant creatures made of ice that would dwarf over human beings. And this was because every time the Wendigo ate a person, they would grow in proportion to the meal. The bigger the meal, the bigger they grew. This way, one of the ways that they used to describe the Wendigo is insatiable hunger, because it created this vicious cycle where the more the Wendigo consumed, the bigger and stronger they grew. But it would have to consume more and more to satisfy its ever-growing hunger. These things are what killed the dinosaurs right here. If you were wondering, you heard it here first. They killed the dinosaurs. They just kept getting bigger and motherfucking bigger, and then they had to die off because they didn't have nothing else to eat. So, this gives us an interesting contrast You have these enormous, gluttonous creatures, and then you have this thin, gaunt husk that are wasting away. But both still suffer from starvation. And that's what we consider the curse of the Wendigo. It's the hunger can never be sated. Its quest for new victims is eternal. How does one become one of these? Wendigos are always regarded as evil. This is no doubt because of their cannibalistic nature. But how does one become such an evil entity? There is the belief that humans could turn into Wendigos if they were overcome by greed. These stories were told to encourage moderation, essentially scare individuals into behaving in a certain way. Those who committed unspeakable acts of cannibalism were also thought to become Wendigos, and this belief is where many attribute the start of the Wendigo legend. However, there was extremely dark times where famine was so bad that people had no choice but to resort to cannibalism just to survive and make it through the long cold winter. It's not common today, but in times of extreme famine, some of the Native American people would perform a ceremonial dance that involved wearing a mask and dancing backwards behind the drum. The ceremony was mostly considered to be a satirical way to reinforce the seriousness of the Wendigo taboo. Many say the Wendigo as a metaphor that represented imbalance and disharmony, not only in an individual but in society. The idea of selfishness does also the title of the fact Wendigo was seen as solitary creatures and often being referred to as spirits of the lonely places. The fear of Wendigo. So what makes the Wendigo so special, and why are we so scared of them? I'd never even heard of this damn thing before this week, so never really was creeped out about them. I mean, the spiritual side of these things is probably, I mean, it's weird. Like, I don't know, anything to do with Native American or that whole spiritual side of that, because I've met a lot of Seminole Indians, and they have some weird ass stories. You know, they just don't that whole area out over there in Florida is just a weird place to be. So you either find people who are cracked out in the head with all these stories about just crazy ghosts and spirits and all these weird ass people, or you got people that are just drugged out beyond their minds. So there was never really an in between. So, but all those people were all fucking weird. Every single one of them were weird. I probably met a couple normal ones, but for the majority of them, they were all pretty fucking weird. And that's probably the creepiest part about this is the spiritual part of it, because people's beliefs, I guess. I think for this one right here, the person's belief in this kind of this kind of cryptid or anything like that, like that's what fuels most of this. And a lot of people just get that in their head that you know, people were already, if you start believing in these things beforehand, you were probably already a little messed up. So to go to this extreme to where you think you're possessed by this thing, like you were probably already there. Like you just need like a little push or something like that. So that's at least my take on this whole fucking subject of this thing. So what makes the Wendigo so special, and why are they so scared of them? It chooses its victims very carefully and slowly, eats away at its sanity. It enters the thoughts and plagues their mind in countless nightmares. See, I'm telling you, like the fucking weird shit that I have. That's so crazy. I have not read this. I've not read this at all. This is the first time I'm reading this. Like I look at skim through like the first pages to see if it's gonna be a good story, and then I just print it off and then we read it. Man, maybe that's what's going on with me. I don't know. That makes you wonder. Maybe I'm the one who's all fucking crazy. I'm over talking about all these other crazy people. Maybe it's fucking me. Probably not. That Marine Corps did that to me. So it enters the thoughts and plagues their mind of countless nightmares. Unable to sleep, they start experiencing and a burning sensation throughout the entire body that has been described as Wendigo fever. And there have been countless tales of people running stark naked through the forest at the dead of night, claiming that they have this fever. As a supernatural entity, you'd expect supernatural abilities, and most of these are exactly what you would imagine. The Wendigo is extremely fast and has unnatural strength despite how frail some of them may look. As expert hunters, they have heightened endurance and senses, making it so they can hunt all manner of terrain and temperature. The older the Wendigo gets, the stronger it becomes. As its corruption spreads through the forest, so does the influence on nature. Some can control woodland creatures, and others are so powerful they can control the weather. With the eldest able to summon darkness, capable of concealing the sun, making it so no one is safe regardless of time or location. Stories of the Wendigo encounter. Despite what we perceive to be just stories, there have been numerous cases over the years of people committing horrid crimes claiming they were possessed by a Wendigo. So they say that there's fucking hundreds of accounts, but when you look it up, there's maybe like 10. So either it's happening and people aren't talking about it, I guess. But no, I've researching on this fucking subject. Like once I got on the subject, I was like, all right, this sounds pretty interesting. Once I got on the subject, you can't find a fucking thing on this. Like as much as you would think that it's like what this that just said numerous cases over the years. Like it's hard. Um, Swift Runner Wendigo in 1878. So this is the one that was in the other one, but it didn't go into depth as this one does, which is what I liked about this one. In 1878, a Native American man named Swift Runner butchered and ate his entire family. The winter was said to have been particularly harsh, and Swift Runner's son had sadly died because of the extreme conditions. Now, we don't know if Swift Run and his family ate the boy to survive, but the mutilated remains of his wife and 5 other children were later found. He eventually confessed to killing and eating his entire family, but he was adamant that his actions were due to the Wendigo's possessions. So, did the eating of his son turn him into the Wendigo? Did he butcher his family because he felt that he wouldn't survive the winter? Or did he value the self preservation on his own life over his family? And the answer to those questions is, well, most likely never know. That's crazy. Like, I don't know. I don't know if I've ever been that cold. And I guess, I mean, it's coming up in our day and age. It's not really, it's hard to, to be that cold to where you have to resort to that. Unless you're like fucking hiking on Mount Everest or something like that. But for the majority of it, like, I could not imagine going through that kind of, like, the winter's long, man. And that's just no bueno right there. I don't know. That's crazy. To kill that many, like you had to survive that, motherfucker. That's crazy. And I feel like after you already killed one, like you can't really do anything else about it because now everybody knows and they've seen what you did, and it's like everybody's already gonna be fucking weirded out by it. I don't know. That's crazy. I don't know what would push your mind. I mean, you gotta be fucking. You already gotta be crazy. Yeah. There's no way you're just normal on that. I don't know. That seems a little much, though. A little extreme. 6 people? Yeah, dude. Damn, man. You hungry? Like, I would have stuck with like a leg, and then, you know, that'd have been it for me. But I don't know. Maybe make it last. Like some Naked and Afraid stuff, I guess. Jack and Joseph Fiddler. So this picture above is Joseph Fiddler shortly before his execution. Look how old these fucking pictures are. I gotta get these camera angles right. So this fucking guy, right? Let's hear what this guy did. Another rather famous case is that of Jack Fiddler and his brother Joseph, who were arrested for the murder of over a dozen people. As the chief of his people, Jack was thought to be capable of removing evil, which is why he got away with killing so many. Claiming that they were all possessed by a Wendigo, Jack managed to escape captivity during a routine walk outside, and he eventually hung himself before the trial concluded. However, his brother Joseph wasn't so lucky. He was sentenced to death by a magistrate, Ellisworth Perry. Despite the numerous appeals of his innocence, Joseph, ironically enough, was eventually given a pardon, but it came 3 days after his death in 1908. These types of cases led people to believe that it might be a more serious mental issue, one that would rather be later dubbed the Wendigo psychosis, the deep craving for flesh. But whether it was a real mental disorder is something that was heavily debated, as the number of reported cases decreased dramatically in the 20th century when the Algonquin people adapted to European ideologies and came to live less rural lifestyles. In conclusion, There's no doubt that the Wendigo myth has changed and evolved over the years. It's now become another monster that reflects on issues as humans, greed, selfishness, and in some extreme or metaphoric cases, cannibalism. It is unlikely that many of the Native American tribes still believe in this legend of the Wendigo as adamantly as they once did. To them, the Wendigo was an evil spirit that embodied everything they hated. It can be interpreted as a symbol of corruption from what they perceive to be outsiders, changing their landscape and the beliefs of their people. Stories of the Wendigo were used to encourage a balanced lifestyle, respect for one's peers, and the world surrounding them. A creature with that kind of insatiable hunger, a spirit capable of possession, or a story meant to encourage cooperation and warned against the dangers of greed. Dear Lord. Like, see, that's the crazy. I don't know why that you would push somebody to get to that point. I guess that'd be fucking crazy. Oh, my buddy's calling me. So my buddy's calling me. He's in the Marine Corps right now, and he's a recruiter. He's trying to help my wife's sister get in the Marine Corps. So I had to call him back because the recruiter she has is a fucking douchebag. What's his name? Tommy, or some shit like that. I don't know. He's a fucking douchebag. He's not helping her. He's just being a piece of shit. So, get your shit together, piece of shit. Or don't be a fucking recruiter. Anyways, so last little story here. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of a crawler. I've never really done that much research on them. I'm probably going to now, obviously. But this is a creepy ass encounter that I thought would be pretty cool. I mean, it's just a little short one, but then we'll read some of the comments that everybody wrote because everybody always has questions about these, you know. And this is off of Reddit, so Reddit's always got some weird shit though that people just post and just leave it, and then they're just like, what the fuck ever, I don't care. So two of my friends snuck out last summer and took a walk listening to music. Decided to sit down on the road and talked a bit. They both heard a distant scream that sounded pretty similar to an elk screech, but for like 1 second in duration. So they turned off the music and saw a huge humanoid horse looking thing sprint out of this forest in the field, and they said it was running really fast, like 40 miles per hour. They said it was kind of hunched over and had a limp, was lean but muscular, and was completely pale and gray and naked. They both sprinted home and FaceTime out on my bike the next night. Oh, and FaceTime each other when they got home and told me and a few others about it the next day. I was in disbelief, so I snuck out on my bike the next night with my other friend. Met up with the two original people along with some others, and went looking for it. We heard noises they described, and me and my one friend saw a pale Bigfoot looking creature walk in front of someone's barn like 300 yards away, but we're not sure. We continued to do this for like a few nights, and one of them was walking to meet up with us alone to go looking for it, and had seen it like 5 times on the walk. There's something like 20 feet in front of him. We probably all went looking for it like 6 or 7 times in total. The last night we went looking, we all saw, and it was super tall, like 8 to 10 feet, super fucking fast, and had these glowing eyes that you could see from a mile away. I'm pretty sure I also saw it have these long, greasy strands of hair about shoulder length. Looked like a mix between a crawler, Jaeger Titan form, and Jeff the Killer. What the hell? It was creepy, and when it was on pavement, you could hear the clopping noises like it had hooves, or something aside from this. I was on a late night gas station walk later that summer with two of my friends. At 3 in the morning, and on our way back, we saw something run and hobble across the field about 70 yards in front of us. It looked pretty similar. However, it was much smaller, maybe 5 feet tall. But I couldn't say. I could see it being maybe 7 feet if it was standing full upright. Does anybody have any idea of what this massive thing could be? This was in rural Northeast Ohio. Oh, great. Guess who else is in Northeast Ohio? fucking me, right? Yeah, good for me, right? Yeah. So, edit. Was reading over this and forgot to add. We were walking on the way back to my friend's house one of the nights, and behind somebody's house, we heard the noise of a baby crying in the woods. Could have been mistaken for anything else but a baby. So, people's comments are always fucking the best. So, somebody wrote, "The crying baby is something I heard during my encounter. I've heard other encounters that have heard a woman crying for help, anything to lure a victim away from safety. Don't look for it. Set up cameras in the daytime if you can." I'd say it was a crawler, but I'm no expert. A few things stand out to me as unique, like the hair and the baby noises, but honestly, I wouldn't rule it out, as they do make noises of distress, and few people have seen crawlers with hair. You and your friends were able to have multiple encounters, even up close, and never get any pictures? Nah, dude. As soon as you bat an eye at the thing when wait, what? Nah, dude. This is why it's so hard to read Reddit because everybody's like slang. It's so hard to read. As soon as you bat an eye at the thing, he went zoom. Oh, you had to be looking in the right place at the right time. Half the people would see it and be like, "Oh, there he is," and the other half would be like, he'd be gone. I don't think he was a crawler since those are slow as fuck. This dude was fucking quick. Um, did the crawler use paragraphs? No, but an ancient Greek legend says that he could read words and letters even without paragraph form. What the hell? Assuming all things you saw, here are the here are the same entity. I'd wager it'd be a Wendigo rather than a crawler. It could be the type of person that considers them two different entities, of course, but what I consider crawlers don't appear to have the vocal mimicry ability of either humans or animals. Plus, the shagginess, especially its long hair on the head, matches up with some of the recent stories I've heard. Although this could be a whole third entity, too. Not a very helpful answer, I guess, to say. I don't know, it could be anything. But I think what's important here is that you're probably safe. You're safe as long as you aren't walking alone, probably. All these things seem to avoid groups and aren't even hostile to being mostly. But don't go trying to hug or anything. My first thought when I heard my friend explain it was Wendigo. It could have been, I could have been not sure. It's seen its full body a few times. The first time it was sprinting like 60 miles an hour in the field, propelling itself with its front legs. And its back legs were like really short and limp like T Rex arms. I don't believe it was hairy, but I do recall seeing some greasy locks about shoulder length. There's a movie I remember seeing on Netflix called Sorry to Bother You. And the movie there has some tall green looking humanoids with horse heads who used to be people but took a drug and it turned them into horse people. Looked it up and it looks similar to that mixed with a crawler, about 10 to 15 tall standing, 10 to 15 feet tall standing. I remember seeing it next to the ranch house and it was easily taller than the house. I would describe it the way it runs as somewhat like a chicken. I've heard many crawler stories from my grandpa while growing up in Alabama. Those terrifying stories left quite the eye indentation. So yeah, the Wendigo. I mean, it's a pretty. I don't know. I mean, it's pretty fucking creepy. I guess if you're in, like, once you know about it, I guess it's probably a pretty creepy subject because if if you don't see one like specifically a Wendigo or you have that Wendigo psychosis or fever or whatever you want to call it, I think if you think you have that, that's probably what pushes people to be like extremely, extremely like schizo and cannibalistic, like Hannibal Lecter type stuff. So I think that's where like it gets kind of creepy and kind of weird. So I don't know. What do you guys think of it? You guys think it's a real thing that type of creature or spirit or even like possession? I don't know. It just seems a little off, but it does seem pretty fucking creepy though. So to each his own. Whatever your opinion is. I'm just here to read the stories, tell the facts. Or facts, I guess. Opinions, I guess. So, yeah. But other than that, that's about it for today's episode, guys. I do appreciate you guys stopping by again. Don't forget, make sure you guys leave a like, subscribe, hit a comment, whatever you want to hear, whatever you want to see. I appreciate the feedback. I appreciate all you guys. And take care, and we will see you next week.